tell you one reason why the Democrats are cooked is because it's a party of mid-level managers who've done very well for themselves as by being mid-level managers, which means in order to be a good mid-level manager, you have not ticked off your boss, and you've told yourself a story about why you deserve to like rule over those below you. Right? You have not ticked off your boss, and you have legitimized your rule over those below you, and that is the Democratic leadership to a T, which is why they can't actually countenance a quality of a political solution to our political problems that would undermine, the standing conventional narrative that had served as their boss for so long, right? And why they're so comfortable with labor injustice in general. So let me go a little bit deeper when I say that the Democrats are a party of mid-level managers who haven't I don't know if courage is the right word, although there is a risk aversion there because it belongs to a mid-level manager to be risk averse. But they've carved out a comfortable life for themselves. That's the thing. The Democrats are led by a people who don't miss meals. They live a comfortable life as a political minority. They live a comfortable life. They have good jobs. They did well in school. They did all of these things without actually taking real chances or solving real problems. And so they look at someone like Bernie, and that'll seem radical. That'll seem radical because like he's actually trying to solve problems. Or they'll look at, some real progressive, and that'll just seem too radical because he's actually trying to solve problems. And so instead you get the abundance agenda. The abundance agenda. I'm talking about Ezra Klein's book, which is not really compelling to anybody who's serious about problems. It's just kind of like it's not even adornment. It's not even a veneer of going at the seriousness of our political confusion that has led to this moment right now. And why is it that the Democrats are so recalcitrant? Well, it's because the suburban class, and I'll say it, it's a bunch of wives. You got a bunch of suburban wives who are now professional class who, indict their daddy for being the patriarch, but were a little bit slow to indict their daddy's system, because now that their daddy's system that allowed them to live, or their ex-husband's system or whatever that allowed them to live and do well, they're not going to indict that because that's too much of an indictment of their own kind of bourgeois comforts, right? So that's the class that leads the Democratic Party. That's the class that leads the Democratic Party, of people who are entirely too comfortable in the standing order of things, and so that any real critique of it is going to indict both their finances and property values, but also their morality, because it's a system out of which they thrived. And if it's broken, that means that, their thriving was a sham, and these people don't admit that. But nobody wants to actually let those people govern, right? The Democrats are cooked because you got these wives that nobody actually trusts with governing, and then in the first time, what happened? They shut down the world for COVID-19. And that was, and then, yeah. And so that's where we are. And I want to resuscitate the Democratic Party because I think the conventionalism of the Republican Party is bad for a variety of reasons. But when the alternative is a Democratic Party that can't countenance, you could tell them in small words the solution to their problems, but there'll be an attitudinal barrier against it because it's new, it's different, and it requires a little bit of courage or a little bit of insight that they can't fathom. That's why Bernie Sanders gets kicked out. And I'm, I don't know, more radical left. I'm farther off than Sanders is, but the Democratic Party needs me. They need me. And but they don't want to, but everything I say will scare them in a way that they're not going to want to listen to. So, by the way, if you like appreciating listening to me, which I think you should, even on these late nights, you should go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month. And I'll keep helping you make sense of your life and make sense of why, for example, your Democratic leadership is both comfortable being condescending to you and scared of new ideas, even if they make sense. Even if the new ideas make sense, they can't actually, like, taking it in their mind, it would be too hard because they'd actually have to change their comfortable lifestyle. And that's the thing. We have a Democratic Party that is suburban, college educated, and money, and in the minority. That means if they want to be the majority, they have to do things that are different than the things they did in order to live their comfortable life in the suburbs or whatever professional class jobs they have. So they don't want to do things that are different than that because they like their lives. It's a very comfortable lives living under Republican governance. They want to pretend like it's not. But I'm from Georgia, where a lot of rich Democrats live under Republican governments and have governance and have for their whole lives. And they have to pretend that they mind it, but it keeps the order they like. So that I've been honest that my biggest fear is that the whole United States is going to become Georgia. The whole United States is going to become Florida, where the Democrats don't really have the fiber to mount a serious challenge that will actually change minds. So I spend a lot of time thinking about what keeps Democrats being so bad. And I do think it's like the mid-level professional class wife mentality where they can't really accept a new solution. Their life is too comfortable, premised on the old way of doing things, right? So when someone like David Hogg says, like, we need to get serious about internal debates because we have an approval rating in the teens, that will sound crazy to them. Because although the Democratic Party has a congressional approval rate in the teens or maybe the 20s, and that's the same sort of ideology that's allowed themselves individually to live so comfortably. So in the suburbs, and it's the same kind of good school ideology that kind of kept them through and carved out and allowed them to carve out a life for themselves. Someone says, which state has the most hope for the Democratic Party? I don't know, Minnesota, maybe Rhode Island. We live in a national politics right now, and I just don't see it. I don't see it. People live too well. Democrats, suburban Democrats, the ones who actually control the party, they live too well out of power. They live too well out of power. They live too well being indifferent to working class people. Suburban Democrats have too cushy of a life in their indifference to the plight of working class people. And why would they give up that cushy life? No. So I just hopped on to say that. And if you appreciate what I'm doing, you know what to do. Go to funkyacademic.com, kick in $5, $15, $50 a month. And, I'd like to tell you I'm optimistic about the Democratic Party, but the poor don't have any access to real microphones that get distributed. I get like 1,000 views on this. Ezra Klein's Abundance is getting, 1 million, and nobody who listens to Abundance who is on the fence is going to swing to the Democratic Party. So I don't know what to tell you. The Democratic Party is cooked of their own design because there are just too many people who are not adequate to the problem, adequate to our political problems with respect to labor, with respect to race, with respect to international relations. And if you would tell them in small words the solution, they won't hear it because that solution's different than the quality of thinking that got them to the place where they are today. And they're in a pretty comfortable place. The Democratic Party is run by professionals, good at school professionals. And they got to be good school professionals, not by advocating for a federal job guarantee or advocating for, I don't know what you want, reparations. They got to their good at school place, their professional class, by just kind of, being good liberals. But, the labor movement doesn't need good liberals right now. It needs someone who's going to talk about, you need not just a card check, you need an amendment for mandatory unionization of every firm over 500 people. So the election doesn't become whether the company unionizes. The election becomes which independent union are we going to go with to help us negotiate this contract. So these kinds of thoughts, you go to a professional class Democrat and talk like this, they will, their eyes will glaze over because they're professional class. They're comfortable. They're comfortable. And if you go to talk to poor Democrats like this, they might get it, but they know that they don't have any real power in the party. So there's that. All right. Thank you for your time. Peace.